Good morning, and I apologize for our tardiness. Welcome to the happiest committee in the Nevada State Legislature and the hardest working, of course, the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Assemblyman Carter.
Present.
Assemblyman DeLong.
Present.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Here.
Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Assemblyman Gurr. Assemblyman Hibbets. Assemblyman Koenig. Assemblyman MacArthur. Assemblyman Nguyen. Assemblywoman Taylor. Assemblywoman Thomas. Chair Torres.
And welcome to the audience here in Carson City, those joining us by video conference in Las Vegas, and those listening over the internet. Before I get into our housekeeping items, just a note to the members of the public, we will be going in order for our bills today. So we'll begin with SB 20, then we'll go to SB 247, followed by SB 264. A couple housekeeping items before we begin. Please remember to silence your electronic devices. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card to the committee staff. For those joining online, please be sure to mute your microphone when you are not speaking to minimize any background noise. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state your name, state your affiliation, if any. For the record, then turn the microphone off each time you are done speaking. Handouts should have already been provided to the committee staff. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we do not agree with another person's position. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person will be limited to 2 minutes. In addition, the public may submit written testimony to the committee up to 24 hours after the hearing. At this time, I will begin by opening the hearing on SB 20, which revises provisions relating to the process for filling a vacancy in the Office of County Commissioner. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Torres, Vice Chair Duran, and members of the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. For the record, my name is Jennifer Berthume. I serve as the Government Affairs Manager at the Nevada Association of Counties, or NACO. Thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 20 on behalf of NACO, whose members represent all 17 of Nevada's counties. SB 20 addresses the issue of vacancies on local boards of county commissioners. Under current law, should a vacancy occur, the governor would appoint a person of the same political party as the most recent holder of the vacant office. However, no requirement exists for consultation or coordination with the local government. Excuse me. SB 20 proposes to amend NRS 244.040 to allow for a board of county commissioners to establish a process via public ordinance to fill vacancies that may occur. After the bill was presented in the Senate Committee on Government Affairs, we amended the language to align with the process that cities are currently authorized for under Nevada Revised Statute to fill their vacancies. I will summarize the amended bill as it was passed by the Senate. Within 30 days after the vacancy occurs, a Board of County Commissioners may, by a majority vote of the remaining members, choose to either declare by resolution a special election to fill the vacancy for the unexpired term, or establish an ordinance process to fill the vacancy at a public meeting with an appointment of a person of the same political party as the most recent holder of the office, who must also be a qualified elector of their respective county. If the Board of County Commissioners chooses not to declare a special election or establish an ordinance to fill the vacancy, then the board may submit a list of 2 names for consideration to the governor within 30 days. The governor would then have 15 days to appoint one of those individuals. Lastly, if a Board of County Commissioners chooses not to engage in the process, it would revert to the existing process, with the governor appointing a member of the same political party as the most recent holder of the office. This completes my presentation of SB 20, and at the pleasure of the chair, I'm happy to take any questions the committee may have.
Members, any questions? Assemblyman Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Nathum, for being here and for presenting this bill. Question, and this may be obvious, and I may have missed it. Why with the exception of Carson City?
Through you, Chair Torres, to Assembly Member Taylor. It is because I believe that they're a city.
It's not the county around. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, and please feel free to go directly to the members. Assemblyman DeLong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the processes you described, if the county commission chooses not to do a special election or establish an ordinance, you said two names to the governor. I didn't see in the bill that those two names have to be of the same political party. Did I miss that? Okay.
That Assemblyman DeLong, Jennifer Berthume, for the record, that is correct. They
Okay.
must be of the same
All
political
right,
party.
thank you.
And I'll just for the record too, I believe that's in line 8 of the bill. And then members, any additional questions? Assemblyman Koenig.
So the part I really like, I just haven't gone through this process of vacating a county commission seat and seeing someone replace me, that I really like the timeline there, because we were just at the mercy of the governor to whenever he got around to it. So having that timeline in there is really nice. So I understand the special election. What would be an example of an ordinance? A county commission just can make an ordinance of, we just pick? I mean, what would be an example of an ordinance, or what limits would they have on an ordinance there?
Thank you for the question, Assemblyman Koenig. Jennifer Berthume, for the record. The ordinance would have to include those things such as the same political party, qualified elector, and then obviously be in a public forum, so at an agendized meeting.
But potentially they could make an ordinance that they as county commissioners choose. Would that be legal for them to do?
I am Jennifer Berthume, for the record. I'm not sure of that.
Thanks. Sorry.
And Assemblyman Da Silva.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarification. So as the way that the bill is written, would you say that it encourages that a special election should be had first, or is this something that's going to be completely under the purview of the county commissioners?
Thank you for your question. Assemblyman Da Silva, Jennifer Berthume, for the record. It's just one of the options that exist for them.
Assemblyman Nguyen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So along the line of my colleague that just asked this, so the permissive language inside the bill, that's why the word may was used instead of if shall, so that if they don't have to do it, they don't have to. So this list is entirely at the whims of the Board of County Commissioners, so that's why you want to use the word may instead of shall.
Thank you, Assemblyman Nguyen. Jennifer Berthume, for the record. Yes, it is all permissive, so it is, options for them to use should they choose to.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Assemblyman Taylor, and then Assemblyman DeLong.
Thank you very much for coming back. I just want to circle back on that, because I'm like, wait a minute, that's not enough of an answer. Of course, I know Carson City is a city, but they're also a county. So it's not the fact that they're a city as much as, because they're a county, but they don't have a county commission. Am I clear on that, or am I missing something in there?
Jennifer Berthume, for the record. They have a Board of
They
Supervisors.
have a board of supervisors. Does it function as a county commission?
And that might be yes, and a city council, I think would be, but that may be a question for legal.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
And right now, we're currently missing our committee counsel, Mr. Killian. So we will make sure that we get back to the committee with that answer. Thank you. I appreciate the question.
All right, thank you very much. I was like, wait a minute, I know they're a city, but they're also a county, so I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the follow-up.
And Assemblyman DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. If the process goes down the road of the county commission does pass an ordinance for them to vote on a replacement, what happens if there's a tie vote?
Jennifer Berthium for the record. Thank you, Assemblyman DeLong. Based on the language of the bill, it does have to be a majority vote. So in the case of a tie vote, they would not fulfill the process, and it would revert to that selection by the governor.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I did have a question as well. So right now, and I just want it to be very clear what that current process is. Right now, if we were to have that vacancy, there would be a special election. Is that correct?
Jennifer Berthium for the record. Chair Torres, currently no public process exists for an appointment. The governor would just appoint to the vacant office.
And is that true of all cities? Because I do remember back in, I guess this would have been 2019, it was in the middle of the legislative session, there was a vacancy in the city of Las Vegas. When there was that vacancy, I know that there was a special election. And so do you know what would make that instance in 2019 different, or is that unique to certain city charters? And would this apply to all charters?
Jennifer Berthium for the record. Chair Torres, thank you for your question. I believe there are some variants in the city charters, which was a guidance for creating this process. But in the county process, since nothing like that existed prior, we did use some charter like language, but I'm not sure of the city process in each city.
And I guess my question, or my what I seek to understand, is why we would have a county process that varies so much from the city process. Because if the city process to fill the vacancies is for the special election, it would appear to me maybe most sensible that we would have that special election for the county commissioners. Additionally, to give that voice to that community to participate and have a say. And while I think that there is room for public participation, I do have concerns, because if you have a majority Democrat county commission and we get to choose, the Republican appointment, I can definitely see that might bring concerns for the other party and vice versa, right? And so I do have just some concerns with what that looks like and what that looks like for working together and making sure that there's somebody that actually represents the needs of that community. I believe I had a couple more questions. I saw some hands go up. Is there, members, any additional questions? Assemblyman Thomas.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. My question actually has to do with the history of this bill. What prompted the bill going forward? Something must have occurred. Did, a vacancy occur that someone, I just want to know what the history is so that I understand the process of this bill the way it is written now.
Thank you, Assemblymember Thomas. Jennifer Berthium for the record. It is my understanding that because there is the established process is that the governor would just appoint, that there have been instances where a governor has consulted with the Board of Commissioners and instances where they have not, and also the timing, as Assemblyman Koenig mentioned. I do know that from my research, Governor Sisolak appointed at least 5 commissioners that I know of, and I believe Governor Lombardo has appointed 3 thus far. So.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Assemblyman Thomas. Members, any additional questions? I don't believe there are any. Thank you. At this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in support of SB 20. And just a reminder, we will continue to have 2 minutes for testimony and support, opposition, and neutral to the bill, and we'll continue to use the timer. Thank you. When you're ready, you may begin, sir.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Steve Walker. I'm representing Lyon, Story, and Douglas County. We're in full support of this bill. To the question on origin, Lyon County actually brought the bill forward as Assemblyman Gray was appointed. They wanted to accelerate the process so they didn't have an uneven board, an even board, a 4-member board. They needed a 5-member. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify in support of SB 20 here in Carson City? I don't see any. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of SB 20?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of SB 20, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide support testimony at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in opposition to SB 20 here in Carson City. I don't believe I see any in Carson City. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to SB 20?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to SB 20, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify neutral to SB 20? I don't see any in Carson City. BPS, is there anyone on the line?
Callers, if you would like to testify neutral for SB 20, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide neutral testimony at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite you up for any closing remarks. It doesn't look like we have any, so at this time, we'll close the hearing on SB 20. And we will go ahead and open the hearing on SB 247, which revises provisions related to regional planning. Ms. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Torres, Vice Chair Duran, members of the Assembly Government Affairs Committee. If you'll just allow me to get ready. Joanna Jacob on behalf of Clark County. And I am pulling up, I have a dreaded PowerPoint, which I have done just to help us explain the bill before you today. So let me get that going. And then also on Zoom, if we could bring up the Zoom, I do have our Director of Comprehensive Planning, Nancy Amundsen, who is on, there she is. Okay, so we'll get going here very shortly. Let me just begin. Okay, so Joanna Jacob, for the record, on behalf of Clark County, here to present Senate Bill 247, which was a committee-sponsored bill in the Senate. And Clark County is here presenting this because we have volunteered to take the lead on this bill. We actually worked with our city colleagues and with RTC on this proposal before you, which is going to make our Southern Nevada Regional Planning Coalition structure in statute. And I want to say this is only specific to Clark County and to our Southern Nevada Regional Planning Coalition. The goal of this bill is to make some of the mandates in statute permissive as we seek to talk about with our colleagues the future of regional planning after this legislative session. So I'll go to I just want to talk about the history of this bill, and Nancy is here if there are any questions on this history, but this is really the origin of the SNRPC. I'll abbreviate it. We call it the SNRPC instead of talking about spelling it out the whole entire time. It was created in 1999. We revised some of the sections in 2017, which took us out of the statutes of Nevada and put us into the NRS before you. We also at that time had worked with RTC. RTC is the Metropolitan Planning Organization for our area, is the coordinator for the regional planning now, and we call that the Southern Nevada Strong Effort. There are required members, so I have the members here, 2 county members, 3 members each from the largest cities, and then we also have additional members, the Clark County School District and the City of Boulder City. The current chair of the SNRPC is Councilman Scott Black from North Las Vegas, and when we put this bill in, Clark County Commissioner Justin Jones was the chair. So that's why I also ended up here presenting this bill before you. We have, through the years, talked about the future of SNRPC. The coalition has continued to look at what the future of this effort should look like. We had approved a consultant to talk about various organizational structures as our community evolved. We have really, as RTC came up with the Southern Nevada Strong efforts, the question is what was left over for SNRPC? And we've had a total, I've listed them out for you. If you want to look at our history, you can look at our website, snrpc.org, where you can look at all of the meetings where we've talked about the future of this effort. 18 meetings total between 2018 up until February 2022 to evaluate the future direction. This is some of the challenges these are some of the challenges we have. As I mentioned, RTC, I've listed them here before you. What RTC has taken over is Southern Nevada Strong. It includes the regional trail planning and open space planning that we have, land use forecasting, the transportation planning for our organization, and some of the forecasting that is done. The mandates that we have in statute have become administratively and financially burdensome. We do not have a funding source dedicated to this effort. The entities absorb these costs. Clark County hosts the meetings. For example, the city of Henderson absorbs the costs for the web hosting, but there isn't a dedicated funding source that we have been able to agree to take on further efforts. So in last year, our SNRPC members voted to take a step back and to pursue this legislation to give us a little bit more flexibility in the statute while we are currently trying to negotiate an interlocal agreement with all the entities to try and figure out what is next. So we took this BDR to the SNRPC Coalition Board in August, and they had approved moving forward with the bill that is before you. So and that's what I have down here. The goal is basically permissive language that we believe we don't want to eliminate at the SNRPC. The entities collectively have agreed that there is a value to regional planning, and there's a lot of regional collaboration going on in Southern Nevada. We were here just last week talking about the heat mitigation bill and some of the regional collaboration that we have done with RTC and some of our city colleagues and also private entities in Southern Nevada. So our goal is to try and keep the structure, but make it permissive so that we can at least have it if there's something that comes out of this legislative session, for example, that doesn't fit in with RTC's purview, I guess, on that there may be some avenue that we can then take those issues to SNRPC, so we want to keep it. And we have agreed to meet after the legislative session, should this bill pass, and then figure out the scope of the interlocal agreement. Here are the list. I kind of bulleted out as you're looking at the bill. I tried to put the PowerPoint together to help you navigate through this bill. So I've listed the duties in the sections of the bill that RTC has taken over, such as the master plan review for our entities, the pre-review, and also kind of reviewing master plans in conformance with other agency goals and our collaborative, comprehensive regional policies. We have, this was a question I got in the Senate on Section 1. You see that there's language that we are deleting about a public hearing requirement. That is because the Clark County Board of County Commissioners also sits as our Air Pollution Control Board. We are federally required to collaborate with the RTC on an air pollution plan for our region. We take it to the RTC for public discussion, and then the public hearing on that plan is actually, it comes to the Clark County Board of County Commissioners, which is really robustly attended. The SNRPC meetings weren't the best place to have public comment. Honestly, if you look at the meetings, we often don't meet, I guess, and there's more robust and other opportunities to have the public hearing and input on that air quality plan. You will see, if you looked at Nellis, you will see there was opposition in the Senate on this specific point, but we worked with them after the hearing, and then they removed their opposition, and the bill did pass unanimously out of the Senate. You'll see, I just want to note, there is one section that we are deleting at the end of the bill that is on bus turnout language. This was actually RTC's request, that they actually did what that section required, and we don't need it in the law anymore. So that's the only section that we are repealing. We have kept the language permissive on some of the regional issues, such as housing policy. So, and you'll see in Section 5 that that's the main planning section of the bill. I guess that we have kept this very permissive because we have created the Southern Nevada Strong effort, and so that we may collaborate. And these are some of the things that we are working on together: the heat island mapping, affordable housing issues, discussion of water, and community health measures that are being discussed as part of Southern Nevada Strong. And then we have in Section 8 and Section 9, there was language requiring us to create a budget, hire staff, but there is no dedicated funding source for this. So we said if we do have a budget do have a mini budget for like what the counties and the cities are absorbing. But if we were to take this forward, then the bill is written that if we decide to continue this effort under the interlocal agreement, then these sections would also kick in, that we may create a budget and that we may employ or contract staff for the effort. And that I try to make this as simple as possible. I know that planning is a very technical and complicated subject, which is why I have my subject matter expert here if there are questions from the committee. And I will stand for questions now, Chair Torres.
Thank you for the presentation, members. Any questions? I see Assemblyman DeLong, then Assemblyman Hibbett. Assemblyman DeLong.
Thank you, Chair. Pardon me. A couple times during your presentation, you referenced the concept of an interlocal agreement. Do you believe that to establish that interlocal agreement, you need to have this bill complete to give you the permissive language to do that?
Joanna Jacob for the record, on behalf of Clark County. I'll take a stab at that, and then I'll ask Nancy if she has any further comment on that. No, nothing prohibits us from entering into an interlocal agreement with our city partners. But the city entities and the county have agreed that some of the scope, I guess what I would say, and Nancy can nod or shake her head if I'm wrong, but the scope of what goes into that interlocal would be greatly assisted by passage of this bill. Nancy, would you want to offer any additional comment?
Hi, Nancy Amundsen, Clark County Department of Comprehensive Planning. Through Chair Torres, right now, actually, we do have an interlocal agreement, but it is very much out of date. It was entered into in 2000. We have been working with the municipalities to update it, but this bill would help us to be a little more flexible in our planning agreements and how we work together. Right now, the way that NRS is written, it's very specific, and we all work together. I am the vice chair of the Southern Nevada Strong Steering Committee, and all of the municipalities are involved in it, as well as some local nonprofits, the University of UNLV, as well as GOED and LVGEA. So it's a very robust group. So we would like a little more flexibility to be able to enter into the agreement and pretty much work together as we always have, but not be so restricted by what NRS requires that we do. If that makes sense?
Thank you. Assemblyman Hibbett.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Jacob, for the presentation. If I'm reading this correctly, Section 2, with the change from the word shall to may, if I'm reading that correctly, does this mean that the county could just get rid of this planning commission if it so choose to do so?
Joanna Jacob for the record, on behalf of Clark County. Yes, I guess we could, though I will tell you that if you look at the SNRPC discussion, this has been discussed through the years. Do we continue it? Do we abolish it? The nature of the work is that we would not do that in isolation because if we establish it, it has to be composed of the mandatory members. So we would do that in collaboration with our member agencies, with our member cities, and the people who are mandated to be part of it. So yes, the way that it was structured is that the county, because we are a regional organization, that we would create it. We host it today, but so instead of we complied with the mandate and we created it. And then this says if, depending on what the future is, that we may establish it if there is a need later for this. And I certainly think that there could be. And that's what the conversation has been with the cities, we may want to keep the structure in place so that if we have to employ it in the future for another area of regional that's suitable for regional planning that's outside of the RTC's purview or any of those other areas, I don't look at it as that we can get rid of it, but it's that we may be able to structure it in our ordinance and create it in a way that fits the current need. So Nancy, do you have any further comments in response to Assemblyman Hibbett's question? Thank you.
Quick follow-up, if I may?
Yes, go ahead, Assemblyman.
So I just want to be clear, it is not the intent of the county to abolish the Planning Commission.
Joanna Jacob for the record on behalf of Clark County. Just to clarify, this is not the Planning Commission. This is the Regional Planning Coalition that we're talking about. And then, no, the current intent is to meet after this session and talk about the future of regional planning with our city collaborators in the Clark County School District, who's also a member of the group, and RTC. So that is our current intent.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Assemblyman Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. And actually, that was my question, was that the intention is to get rid of the SNRPC? But if I may connect to that, Chair, if I may. Well, you mentioned several times Southern Nevada Strong. And for those of us that don't live in Southern Nevada, would you mind sharing how that kind of replaces? I understand how some of those functions, right, has replaced it. If you can share that with me.
Yeah, this is Joanna Jacob on behalf of Clark County. Through you, Chair, in response to Assemblyman Taylor, I actually think I would like Ms. Amundsen to talk about Southern Nevada Strong because she is the vice chair, as she noted, and I also have RTC here who is going to come up in support. They can also talk about their role as Southern Nevada Strong. So, Ms. Amundsen, would you respond?
I believe you're muted. Thank you.
I apologize. The Southern Nevada Strong
And I apologize if you could please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Nancy Amundsen, through Chair Torres. The Southern Nevada Strong was an effort that collaboratively we did in Southern Nevada to create a regional plan back in 2015. And the initiative has continued. We have moved it, or the SNRPC moved it over to the Regional Transportation RTC for administration. However, all of the entities are involved in it. It is our regional plan. And we met last week, the Southern Nevada Strong Steering Committee met last week, and we're going to look at updating it, but it is our guiding document for Southern Nevada, whether it's for economic development, planning, housing, heat island effects. That's something that we're looking into. All of the different initiatives that have been discussed as related to regional planning, we do that. We work on it through Southern Nevada Strong.
Thank you very much. Because it seems I'm from Washoe, and in Washoe, ours is a Truckee Meadows, or it's TMRPC, serves in that role, does the regional plan, and the many of those functions that Ms. Atkinson said. So that gives me some context. So thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Thank you, Chair.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Chair. Quick question. Section 8 mentions the creation of a new budget that's going to be now pursuant to this endeavor. My question is, what's that budget going to look like? Is there sort of like a rough estimate as to the annual operating amount there? Thank you.
Joanna Jacob for the record on behalf of Clark County. The budget right now that is adopted is pretty is pretty small, I guess is what I would say. I don't want to say small, but the budget that would be adopted would be, and when I looked at the interlocal agreement that Nancy had referenced that was actually approved in 2000, this was part of the interlocal that we had talked about. Okay, here's the scope of what our SNRPC is going to be, and then the contribution from each member agency was then created in the interlocal agreement that in turn has to go back to each local government for adoption by their governing board. So the budget would be dictated by what would be put into the interlocal agreement. So we would agree in theory, I guess, on what the contribution would be from each entity, and then that would be set forth in the interlocal agreement that would go to the SNRPC and then go back to all of our component agencies for adoption. So that would be, and I can't give you like an overall budget number or anything. That has actually been one of the challenges that we've had through the years in trying to determine what this looks like and how we would fund it.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? I do. Thank you. Assemblyman Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I just want, I guess it's not a question, but a comment. I'll put it as a question. This will allow local government to have autonomy in what happens in their planning commission, if I'm understanding.
Joanna Jacob, for the record, I'm going to think about your question and hopefully I can get there. And if I don't answer it, Assemblyman Thomas, redirect me 100%. I think that when we talked about regional planning versus each local government's planning, there is a value that we have jointly discussed about trying to align those efforts, I guess, in the sense that we want to regionally align on some of our planning policies. So planning and zoning for each local government, we all have our own autonomy, I guess, on what the policy should be within our borders of each municipality or within Clark County, unincorporated areas. And then the regional planning would be an arm for us to say, should we align these policies towards some sort of regional goal? So, and that I believe when you look at the history of SNRPC and some of the the history on this, there has been a buy-in on that concept that we see that there is some value in trying to align our policies, because certainly certain things, the planning aspect does impact us as a region overall. Some of these issues that we have talked about through this meeting and in others, especially on some of the policies that you've worked on as well about walkability as a regional basis, or some of the heat mitigation that we've talked about does not stay within a specific border. It is a regional issue. So I hope that addresses your question. It's not that we're trying to maintain local government autonomy by making this permissive. We're saying that there is regional collaboration happening through RTC and through other efforts and through Southern Nevada Strong, where you have all of the entities sitting on the steering committee and working together on these things as a region, as a collaboration, but that there may be a value, there may be something that we may need this for in the future that does not sit within that structure. So we are trying to keep this as an option for our entities to collaborate in the future. And we will work on an interlocal agreement that we have talked about what that may look like in the future.
And thank you, Madam Chair, and you got there for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? I did have a couple questions, and I imagine actually having members here that you probably know the answer. We were trying to look to see, does the SNPRC? Thank you. SNRPC. Does the SNRPC, do they have to follow open meeting law?
Joanna Jacob, for the record, yes.
And I just want to make sure that that would also be true of the RTC's program, the Southern Nevada Strong? Yes, sorry, there's so many different titles today. And would it still be applicable to that group?
Joanna Jacob, for the record, on behalf of Clark County, yes. And RTC will come up and they can also talk about what that looks like when they come to the mic. Thank you.
Thank you. So really, just so I make sure that I'm understanding what this bill does, it's kind of, right now we have essentially two different authorities that are responsible for doing kind of something that is the same. This would allow for, if necessary, for that planning commission to continue to meet if there are things outside of the scope of what the Southern Nevada Strong is already doing. But then it also will allow for Southern Nevada Strong to do the work that they're already doing. Is there anywhere in statute right now that work is codified that Southern Nevada Strong is doing?
Joanna Jacob for the record. I'm not sure that Southern Nevada Strong is codified in NRS. It was actually, and I guess I'll defer to Nancy on that. When I looked at the structure of what we've done, we really talked about, and I think it's some of the entities in Section 5. So we have done this as an interlocal agreement largely. And I think, Ms. Amundsen, maybe you can perhaps clarify on how this is, Southern Nevada Strong is described or in a contract document or elsewhere.
Nancy Amundsen, Clark County, for the record. The Chairwoman Torres, the Southern Nevada Strong is our regional plan, and right now in NRS, the regional plan, the RTC has the ability to administer it, but it is codified in that is our regional plan, and that is what we are looking at. The regional plan has, as I noted before, our land use, our economic development, and a lot of the social concerns that we have here in Southern Nevada. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. It does, and I'm happy to continue this conversation offline as well. I think, what I just want to make sure is that there's still that requirement that it is being done. That it's still being done, and it seems like there is this organization that's going to do it, but I guess we never know what the unintended consequences is in 20 years. Maybe the local governments decide to take away Southern Nevada Strong, and then now nobody's doing this work. I don't foresee that happening, but just to make sure that there's still the requirement that these plans are created.
Joanna Jacob for the record. I just went back and I was looking at my notes, Chair, and I think what Ms. Amundsen is talking about, and I had this in our initial slides under SNRPC history, this is when we worked on the modifications to bring everything into NRS. So I actually gave you the statute there where we have codified our RTC's ability to administer the regional plan. That is in statute today. It's under, are you ready for it? It's 278-02528 subdivision 4. This statute is incredibly, has been worked on through the years. So we have, many numbers after the statutes, but that's where that is codified on RTC's ability to administer this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Members, any additional questions? It doesn't appear that there are any at this time. So we will go ahead and move on to individuals wishing to testify in support of SB 247. See a couple people approaching here in Carson City.
Morning, Chair Torres and members of the committee. Jack Giese for the record, representing the RTC of Southern Nevada. Ms. Jacob and Ms. Amundsen did an excellent job sort of distilling the transfer of duties that we have taken over, as well as the current structure of regional planning. Just for the edification of the committee, I would add that for the Southern Nevada Strong Steering Plan has three main components. Increasing economic and regional economic competitiveness and education, investing in complete communities, and increasing transportation choice. So all of the implementation that is being done in that committee sort of falls under those buckets. And then in addition to that, we're actively working with our local government partners to identify topics of collaboration and shared priorities for the future. So any other questions, would be happy to answer those as it relates to RTC stuff.
Good morning, Chair Torres and members of the Hardest Working Committee on Government Affairs. For the record, Leonardo Benavides, Government Affairs Manager for the City of North Las Vegas, here today in support of SB 247. We want to thank the county for bringing this bill forward and working with us in the interim on this, and also in regards to identifying some of those redundancies that need to be addressed and continuing to work on those interlocal government agreements so we can better narrowly tailor what regional services we want to look at together as we value our collaboration between our local governments down in Southern Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Nicole Rourke, representing the City of Henderson. I'd like to echo the comments of my colleagues and just appreciate the sponsor of SB 247. We're here to support. We like the flexibility that it provides, considering we also have other regional planning efforts, as you've heard. So thank you, and we are here to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson City? I don't see anyone. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of SB 247?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of SB 247, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify in opposition to SB 247. I don't see any here in Carson City. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to SB 247?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to SB 247, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite anyone wishing to testify neutral to SB 247. Don't see any here in Carson City. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral to SB 247?
Callers, if you would like to testify neutral for SB 247, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify neutral at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite the bill sponsor for any closing remarks. Doesn't appear there are any, so we will go ahead and close the hearing on SB 247. Feel the coffee kicking in because I know I'm talking just a little bit faster. And we'll go ahead and move on to SB 264, and I will open the hearing on SB 264, which revises provisions related to collective bargaining. Welcome, Senator Doñate and Mr. McCann. And Senator, I think this is your first time testifying in the hardest working and happiest committee in the Nevada State Legislature, so welcome.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. Fabian Doñate for the record, proudly representing Senate District 10. Today, I come before you to present on Senate Bill 264, which revises provisions relating to collective bargaining. Just to quickly summarize, I want to go ahead and turn over to Mr. McCann to present the bill, but you know, this is a conversation that we've had for several months now, and it's part of a situation that they encountered in Southern Nevada. And so I think it's important for this committee to reflect and understand this issue, and I'll go ahead and turn it over now so he can present the content of it.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee and staff. My name is Rick McCann, representing the Nevada Association of Public Safety Officers and a member of the Nevada Law Enforcement Coalition. First, I wish to thank Senator Doñate and Senator Pezzina, who's also a sponsor of this bill, for their help on this matter. I guarantee you this is going to be the easiest bill that you are going to hear right now. Well, Taylor picked it up. I don't know about the rest of you guys.
So is the hearing over?
There you go. Anyway, existing law, real quickly. Existing law, NRS 288.140, requires that employee organizations composed of police officers, sheriff's deputies, and other law enforcement officers be composed exclusively of those people. Now, that maintains the community of interest for law enforcement personnel in their bargaining unit that prevents non-law enforcement organizations from coming in and taking over those bargaining units. Now, Section 1, subsection 4 of this bill, very simply, it adds that employee organizations composed of civilian, not officers themselves, not people who are out there doing that work, but civilian who provide support services to metropolitan police departments, which are which are organized pursuant to NRS Chapter 280 of the NRS, must also be composed exclusively of those civilian law enforcement employees. Law enforcement civilian employees provide support services to law enforcement agencies that include crime scene investigators, dispatchers, abuse and neglect specialists, cold case investigators, and many, many others. Civilian employees who provide support services to a metropolitan police department are vital to the police paramilitary structure, and it's necessary to provide them with the same exclusivity protections in their bargaining units as their law enforcement colleagues in order to protect their own communities of interest. After all, that's the whole purpose of establishing bargaining units for labor positions, to assure that they are allowed to function within groups that are alike in their jobs while pursuing wages, benefits, and working conditions that are beneficial for that specific working group. And that's it. And for these reasons, we ask that you support SB 264, and I stand on my earlier promise. That was easy.
Thank you, Mr. Buchanan. Senator Donate, are you ready for questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. At this time, members, any questions? Assemblymember Hibbets. See, it wasn't that easy. It wasn't that easy. There's a question.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. McCann, I'm going to direct this to you simply because Senator Donate probably doesn't have the historical knowledge. Why do we need this law? Is there some sort of an impetus that prompted this that I'm not aware of?
Rick McCann, for the record, through the chair. Yeah, what prompted this, quite frankly, Assemblyman Hibbets, is there were efforts through this PPACE, the Police Protective Association for Civilian Employees in Metro. They had some issues where some outside organizations attempted to come in and take them over and run them, and they were not law enforcement oriented. They were not civilian law enforcement oriented. It resulted in some protracted litigation before the EMRB, Employee Management Relations Board. I'm happy to say that the organization, the civilian organization, did prevail, but we want to stop that in the future. So this is a bill that is responding to a problem that happened. We're not looking for a problem. We have one. We're trying to fix it. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much. And in the interest of transparency, I would like it noted that I was a member of PPACE back in the 90s before a lot of you were born.
It depends what year in the 90s, Assemblyman. Members, any additional questions? Assemblywoman Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I was looking through the bill, excuse me, and it's a matter of language. Section 1, subsection 6. I wanted to know, when you mentioned doctors and or physicians, the definitions, and then you have practitioners of Oriental medicine. I was just wondering if that is something that we want to continue in the bill, or do we want to list it as Asian medicine?
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman Thomas. Fabian Oñate for the record. So that was a conforming change. That is not the intent of addressing this. The only portion that we're looking to change is subsection 4 of section 1. So I don't know if your legal counsel would like to respond to that as well, but it's not our intention to address that at this moment. It's just a conforming change.
We can make a note of that for our legal counsel. Just quick follow-up. We can make a note of that for our legal counsel. He'll be back soon.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering, since you did correct, you struck out 5 and made it 6, just to keep this current in today's society. I don't know if you would like to amend Oriental medicine and make it Asian medicine.
And, we're going to look into it, but I believe that there are other places in the statute where it is also called that. So you would have to probably change significant portions of the statute. And that's not to say whether I'm supporting or opposition, but just to say that you would need a significant change probably to that policy. So we might need another bill for that. Thank you.
But thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so you know, it's on the record. Thank you.
Members, any additional questions? Nope, it doesn't appear that there are any. Thank you. At this time, we'll invite anyone wishing to testify in support of SB 264. Please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Torres, members of the committee. My name is John Abel, Director of Governmental Affairs for the LVPPA, and I'll keep it short and simple and say that we support this bill wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Cody Hoskins, Political Director for SCIU. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. As well, I'll keep this very short. SCIU also supports this bill and urge your support. Thanks.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Troyce Krumie, TROYCE KRUMME. I'm the current Vice Chairman of the Las Vegas Police Managers and Supervisors Association, testifying in favor of this bill. For the record, I think the 90s produced a lot of great humans and some even better music. I'd just like to put that on the record. And in support, as a union representative, I believe all unions should have a clear understanding of who is eligible to be in their membership and provided all the protections that the NRS, I believe, intends to protect. And I believe this measure goes a long ways to protect the civilian union with Metro to cover that. Thank you.
Morgan Baiselli, here with Silver State Government Relations, here representing Las Vegas City Employees Association, and we support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in support of SB 264? I don't see any here in Carson City. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in support of SB 264?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of SB 264, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair.
Good morning, Madam Chair Torres, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Shane Sales. I'm an IT supervisor working for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I am in strong support of Senate Bill 264 and ask that the committee support this bill as well. Thank you.
One moment, Chair. Caller with the last 3 digits 121, please go ahead. Caller, you're unmuted on our end. Please go ahead. One moment, Chair.
Good morning, Chair and members of the Government Affairs Committee. My name is Jason Begun, and I'm one of the executive directors of LVP PACE, and I just want to say we strongly support this bill. Thank you.
Caller with the last 3 digits 121, you're unmuted on our end. Please go ahead. Chair, there are no more callers choosing to provide support to any at this time.
Thank you, members. Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify in opposition to SB 264? I don't see any here in Carson City. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to SB 264?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to SB 264, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to testify neutral to SB 264? I don't see any here in Carson City. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify neutral to SB 264?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to testify neutral at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'll invite the bill sponsors for any closing remarks. All right, it doesn't appear there are any, so at this time, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on SB 264. We'll go ahead and move on to public comment. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to testify in public comment? It doesn't appear that there is any. BPS, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in public comment?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
All right. So at this time, we will go ahead and invite any members for any additional remarks before we close today's hearing. The most efficient committee was able to hear 3 bills in 1 hour. Well done, legislators. Well done. And thank you, presenters. I see Mr. McKent looking at us. It's the most efficient, hardest working, happiest committee in the legislature. What can I say? Members, tomorrow we will have an additional 3 bills as well. I don't have my calendar on me. It's fine. But just please make sure you check the agenda. The agenda has already been posted, I believe, through the end of the week. So we have tomorrow we will be having SB 25, SB 272, and SB 363. And Thursday we will be meeting as well. As a quick note too, congratulations, as hardest working committee. We are not going to be meeting this Friday. At this time, the meeting is adjourned.